Okay, I think we are ready to roll. Before we do get started, I do want to ask you to please add your name and your PDS number if you have not already done so into the chat. This will help us verify our attendance for today and also to award your certificates quickly and also your hours in the Georgia PDS. All right. All right. Let's get started. So, quick disclaimer before we get started. The information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution of this information is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship, and reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited. So before we get started, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Erica Knowles, and I'm a lead associate here at Civitas Strategies. We are a national team of childcare coaches, and we are so excited to be teamed up with the DeKalb Thriving Childcare Business Academy to be bringing you these exceptional webinars and also many other things. Like I said, a lot of you I already have met and know very well through our small study groups, which we'll talk about later as well. But again, we're very excited to be here and be bringing you this topic. In today's conversation, we will be discussing why you should worry about pricing, why you should even think about it. We are going to cover the difference between cost of care and pricing, and also what each of those mean to you and your childcare business. Also, we're going to go over how can you find that just right kind of sweet spot rate for your childcare business. And then at the end, we're also going to touch on where you can go for more help if you need more help. So we will have some points throughout this webinar where we can pause and answer some questions. And I really want everyone to know, if you have not joined me yet in any of the small study groups and learned there, I really like for everyone to ask as many questions as possible, be as engaged as possible. This is definitely a different setup than the small study groups, but please use the chat and throw some questions in there, and also comments as well as we go. Again, I really want you all to be able to ask as many questions as possible. All right. So we're going to actually start off with a little question, which I would like for you to add some stuff to the chat. So how do you feel when it comes to setting rates for your childcare business? What does it make you feel? There are many different feelings that could come from this. Do you feel a little anxious, fearful, kind of chill? It is what it is. It's part of your job and part of what you need to do, so it's not that big of a deal for you. If you could please just enter some information into the chat. You can either use emojis or you can type. I see some things already coming in, some fearful, some stress and worry, concerned about the parent's response. Yes. Some comfortable, that's good as well. Also some anxious, overwhelmed, questioning whether or not you're charging enough. Okay, it's definitely a great question to ask. Uncomfortable at times when it's a family that is struggling and they ask, okay, yep, so yes, that's also a tough one when a family is struggling and you need to increase your rates. Anxious, overwhelmed, and again, a couple other things about communicating those prices. All of those, I really appreciate you typing in the chat. If anything comes up and you think of anything else, Please add it to the chat as well. All of those feelings were completely normal. I did not actually say, but I was a childcare director for 18 years prior to this position, and I also have felt all of those things. I also lead every track of the small study groups that we have, and I have talked to, I don't even know at this point, maybe even hundreds of childcare providers in Georgia who are also feeling the exact same thing. So please know that you are not alone, and that's why we're here, is to offer, some advice, some hopefully actionable tools that you can, put in your back pocket to use for when things arise in having to do with your pricing in your childcare business. um, Again, thank you so much for adding those things. Setting rates for your childcare business is probably one of the most difficult, but also the most important things you can do as a childcare business owner or director. In all honesty, if your pricing is too high, you could potentially price yourself right out of families. And I think, you all, like I said, typed in the chat, and you all can probably feel that. But also, if your pricing is too low, that could also result in you losing families or going out of business. And we actually just talked in one of my small study groups the other day. If your pricing is too low and a family moves into town, they're kind of going to look and say, why is their price so low? I don't know if I want to put my child there. So finding that just right sweet spot for your pricing is so very important for your childcare business. You definitely want to try to lower the risk of losing families because your pricing's too high or too low. So that's why we're here today. We're going to go through what we can help you with in order to set that just right price for your business. Again, I want to acknowledge that today's topic can be described as a very tough topic for many of you and many childcare providers everywhere. Whether you think about pricing and for your childcare personally, and what your families are personally going to, how they're personally going to be affected, or if you're just trying to think on your business side of it. Again, you are a business. You need to stay in business so that you can help your families and continue to help your families. All of these things are deeply rooted and informed by our perceptions of your business and also the money that comes into your business. So considering raising your rates for your childcare can be very uncomfortable for some of you, and whatever feelings you're feeling right now, we want you to know that's normal. And again, we're going to talk through the practical side of pricing and setting the rates that you need to stay in business, and also the rates that you deserve. One of my main goals for this webinar is to ease the discomfort that many, many providers feel when thinking about rate setting and also, raising rates for their childcare business. So again, let's face it, most of us would not say that we got into childcare because we wanted to get rich. It's just a given, sadly, that childcare providers, most of the time do not get extremely wealthy in the childcare business. However, you do have to stay in business. Again, you're there to help the families. You're there to provide a need for your community, and making sure that you are making enough money so that you can stay in business should be your number one priority. So before we dive in too much deeper, it is important to understand the difference between cost of care and pricing. So cost of care refers to how much it actually costs you to care for the children. Cost of care only takes into consideration how much you pay out per child. So it can be broken up by, age group. Obviously, if you're in a center, your infant classroom has a smaller ratio than, say, your school age room. So, you can break it up by classroom, but finding the cost of care per child is very important for you and for your childcare business. Pricing, on the other hand, takes the information that you learned in your from cost of care, and it weighs it against other factors, such as how much can families afford in your area. Can they really afford for you to raise your rates? Will they be able to, afford to still bring their children there? Today, we are going to focus on pricing and helping you to determine how much you should be asking your families to pay. One of the things at Civitas, we work with childcare providers all over the country, and we have found that actually our president or our CEO likes to talk about, this is the one industry probably in the world that providers, owners, and business owners really like to say, I haven't raised my rates since before the pandemic, or I haven't raised my rates in 10 years. Um, Obviously, that's a good thing, but it's also not a good thing. Again, there's no other business probably anywhere that hasn't raised their rates. And definitely it's something that you need to consider. And you need to find ways to communicate to the families why you're raising the rates and what that money is going to. And a lot of it has to do with the communication that you have with the families, those connections that you have with them. So definitely that is at the heart of these rate discussions, is your connections with your families. Again, not having raised your rates, again, there's a good side to that, but there's also, you need to stay in business. Your staff needs to get paid what they deserve, and so do you. Also, the money that you bring in should be pumped back into your classrooms. So it can also seriously help with your curriculum, or, even just, the way your classrooms look, the environment. Um, Also, when you're setting your rates, one thing that's hard sometimes for providers to think about, especially when they have all of those feelings, is that you should consider, and there should be a profit margin added into your pricing. You should be able to make some money, especially if you're the business owner. You should be making some money from your business. So definitely a profit margin needs to be considered into your pricing. So let's pause for a minute before we dive into the 5 steps for determining the just right price. Um, does anybody have questions or comments or thoughts about kind of what I've said so far? Whether it be about the difference between cost of care and pricing, or even just the feelings of communicating those price increases. I know that I have some people on this webinar that I've been in many small study groups with, who have been through this and have some great ways of talking to parents. And again, the communication is key. But I did want to pause here for just a second and see if anybody has any questions. They can type in the chat before we keep moving. I know that it's a tough something that's tough to think about sometimes. But again, I'm hoping that you're starting to see the importance of it whenever you're thinking about your small business. So I'm just going to give it a minute and see if anybody has questions before we get going. Another thing I really do want to mention is that while you may be feeling, anxiety or fear when it comes to your rates right now, or raising your rates, connecting with other providers in your area or in the state, and, hearing what they are doing and how they're doing it. And also, obviously coming to these webinars and things it's really going to help you to realize that you are worth it, and you do deserve to add that profit margin in. And families most of the time can afford to pay that extra. All right, so I see Cami. Hi, Cami. Cami says she sent out personalized letters to each family last Monday regarding our necessary rate increases. Have not heard a word from any of them. Wow. Good job, Cami. Cami's been at quite a few of my groups, so good job. And then Tanya, I only changed the tuition for new families, maybe a new sibling as the child grows. I still charge the same we agreed on day one. Okay, so I definitely would suggest, if it is a rate increase that it's really hard to do, you can definitely start off by adding that rate increase to your new families. It doesn't, there's nowhere that says, that can't start off with the new families. And then as a child transitions to another classroom, then they could have that rate increase, as they transition. But that's a great way to do it, is to start off with the new families having those new rates. So thank you for that. And then one more here, Karen, I just told them verbally, no kickback. I have had, okay, perfect. She's had most of the kids forever and she has not had any sort of kickback. So we see here that there's quite a few people who have done their rate increases, and again, no kickback, no arguments. So I really hope for those of you who are really fearful and, have a lot of anxiety, that you can even ask some questions in the chat, and maybe we can get some of your peers to even answer those for you. I love for for people to learn as much from each other as they do from me, or from the from what I put on the screen. Hey, Marta. Marta put her question in Spanish, so I'm sure Sol will take care of that. Okay, we will continue on. So determining the just right price.
Hey, Erica.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. So Erica, are you in the English channel?
Yes.
Okay, so was just popping over to go ahead and address Marta's question. Were you able to hear
Oh,
her?
yes, yes, absolutely.
Sure, I'll relay it for you. So Marta's having a problem with a rate increase because she's having interest issues, sorry, excuse me, with her CAP. They tried to raise their rates and the families have been unaccepting of their rate increase.
Okay. So yes, I know that there have been a few providers who have spoken about some increase, or some issues with caps, and not being able to raise your rates right now, due to caps. So definitely that is something that, I know I know it doesn't really help that much, but I know a lot of providers are going through that. Not being able to raise those rates because CAPS has said that you are not able to do so. So that's definitely something that I know that the state of Georgia is working on. Let me see. A lot of people are weighing in on CAPS, it looks like. I'm a little confused with the guidelines for raising rates for CAPS. Can we raise them now that the stable funding has ended? Yeah, no, you cannot raise them right now. Thank you, Charmaine, for answering that. So, okay, I'm just going to answer a few more questions before we move on to determining the just right price that I see in here right now. One is, how often should rates change without losing families? Okay, so this is a great question. Honestly, I would suggest, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. Actually, it's on the screen right now. Number 5 is to reevaluate your rates at least annually. So we would suggest that you look at those rates and reevaluate them annually. Does not mean you need to raise your rates every year. However, you want to definitely take a look at it. And a lot of childcare providers do raise their rates every year. Again, we're going to talk about that as well. Charmaine, thank you so much for answering some of these CAPS questions. Okay, I'm going to move on and then I'll come back and answer some more questions. Yes, Sarai, yes, we increase every year. I always did as well at all of the centers that I worked at, increase as well every year. Okay, so let's move on to the process of determining that just right price. So the first step is to determine how much your costs are currently. You want to gather all of your documentation to get a clear picture of what you are spending your money on for your childcare business. I will say if you are a home provider, please make sure that you have, separate bank accounts so you're able to get a clear view of what you're actually spending for your childcare business. So that's definitely a suggestion that we would make for home childcare providers. But you definitely want to gather all of the data. You want to see as clear a picture as you possibly can of exactly what money is going out of your childcare business, of what costs you have. Then for number two, you want to scan the market and look at what the other rates are in your area. Call around and ask for rates. Sometimes, places will give their rates over the phone. Some of them even have them posted on their website. Or you could do, like we all used to do back, in the day, call around and be a secret shopper, pretend you're a parent. But kind of, you need to find out what others are charging in your area. Keep in mind that you also want to just because you may be a center in an area with a ton of childcare homes, you still want to know what those homes are charging as well, because they are still your competition. So keep that in mind as well. Then you can assess how much care is costing you versus the going market rate in your area. So take a real look at the difference between what care is costing you versus what the market rate is. You really, again, need to have a clear picture of that. Then you want to set your rates. You are worth it. Your program is worth it. All of the wonderful things that you and your staff do definitely cost money. And again, you need to set your rates. You need to set them with confidence, and you need to know where the money is going. And by doing those first couple steps, that's going to, lay it all out there where that money is going. But you do need to, as number 4 says, set those rates, set your rates. And then at number 5, we touched on that, but you want to refine your rates on a continual basis. We suggest at least annually that you kind of keep an eye out for, what the others are charging in your area, but you also want to think about inflation. You want to think about, are there new businesses opening up in the area? Are there tons of housing developments going up? Is the area just booming and growing? All of those things can and should impact the rates that you're charging. Also, again, if there's a ton of places going out of business, you again, still want to know exactly what's being charged in your area, as well as whether or not your rates should go up in that instance. And again, we talk about it a lot in the small study groups, but inflation is affecting everybody, and it should be something that you also take into consideration as you assess your rates. Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into these 5 steps to finding the just right rate. So number 1 was gather your data. You want to start by gathering some data to use for your calculations. We recommend at least 6 months of costs if you have that available to you, because that will give you a good sense of how much you're spending on a regular basis. For larger, more complex organizations or huge centers, this may be as simple as pulling your numbers out of, your QuickBooks or your CCMS or whatever system that you use. For smaller centers or, family childcare providers, it may be something where you have to kind of go back through your business bank account or your personal checkbook if it's not separate, or even your credit card statements. But again, you want to think of every way that you spend money. Your credit card, your checkbook, your bank, your debit card, however you spend money, you want to think of all of those ways and make sure you're collecting all of that information. As you collect your costs, we want you to break them up into two different kinds: direct costs and indirect costs. So direct costs are those costs related to the care of children. For example, in an infant room, say you purchase formula for the babies, that's a direct cost for your child care center. In a toddler room, you want to think about things that you purchase for that room. It might be the cost of the teachers assigned to that classroom on a regular basis. Their salary is a direct cost. And indirect costs are those that cover your entire business. So in some cases, if you're a home business, a lot of these costs may relate to your home, such as your mortgage, your utilities, those types of things. And if you're a center, these can take on a variety of different things. It can be not only rent, mortgage, utilities, but it can also be some shared items and shared expenses like maintenance of your playground, or your people who come and mow the lawn, those types of things. Indirect costs can include the cost of running your operation as well, such as your salary for your director, or if you have any other office staff. That is indirect costs. It is not directly for the children. Once the costs are collected, you can organize them in two different ways. Having a per child cost overall may be the easiest. We kind of touched on that a little bit ago, but taking the number of children that you serve on average over a 6-month period and dividing that total cost by those number of children. For a more complex operation, you may want to break down the costs by different, classrooms or ages of care, such as the cost per child for the infant room and the cost per child for the toddler room and twos, and going up preschool, etc. You will use this information in combination with the data collected in our next step, local market prices, to help you determine your rates. So that was a lot, but it's very important for you to gather as much information as you possibly can on any sort of costs that you are spending. Any sort of money, you need to make sure you have all of that documented. Step 2, research local market prices. As we know, the top drivers for parents are the quality of your facility and your location. So definitely you want to keep those things in mind. As such, local market prices can vary drastically from, place to place. Also, it can depend on, what all is around. If you're in a very secluded area and you're the only, childcare center, chances are it's, could be a very good thing. You don't have much competition. But if you're in a very saturated area, that's something that you want to keep in mind as well. If there's a lot of choices within a given area, the prices that they might be a bit lower. But again, there's a lot of different things that you have to keep in mind. But the lack of options can drive the cost of childcare higher, as parents have limited choices. This is basic supply and demand at play, and you need to definitely make sure you're aware of that. Whenever possible, you want to compare apples to apples. So meaning if you are a a large center, you want to try to compare if there are any large centers in the area. If you're a family center, a family childcare provider, you also want to compare against other family childcare providers. But like I mentioned, you still want to touch and kind of know what the other, types of facilities are charging in your area as well, because that is also something very important when setting your rates. You want to check the results of the most recent rate survey that you've done in your area. There are some surveys that can give you a sense of, again, what others are charging. You can find a lot of this information out online. You can look at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services website. They have a lot of information on there for, the cost of childcare in many different areas. So you could always start there if you wanted to. This is a great source of data that can save you a tremendous amount of time and effort. If you don't want to pick up the phone and call everybody, you can just go to this Department of Health and Human Services site and look up the Child Care Technical Assistance Network, and it can give you a lot of information. Another thing I would like to suggest is that you check out social media groups for childcare directors or childcare owners. Margaret, if you have that site, can you drop it in the chat? And if not, I can put it in there in a little bit. But the Facebook and Instagram social media sites for childcare directors and owners can also be a wealth of knowledge on, pricing and those types of things, as well as every other type of topic you can ever imagine having to do with your childcare business. When I actually joined, many years ago, some of those social media sites, it then opened my eyes to I'm not alone. There are other people who are also struggling with these same things. So, and again, you're able to just kind of reach out and ask questions. You can even do it anonymously if you don't want anyone to know, who you are or what you're posting. But you can get a ton of information on those social media sites as well. Starting with your state's market rate data is a great place to begin. However, it may give you enough information to move to the next step, but you might need to still pick up the phone and call, or, get on those social media sites and, join those director or owner childcare pages as well. Just really quickly from the chat, let me see. Is there something we can download with this information, or do we just take notes? There is something that we have, and maybe Margaret can add to the chat some of the tools that we offer that are also on the, I believe, Childcare Thriving Business Academy website as well. And then Jennifer asked about the website. Jennifer, if we do not have that, I can post that in the chat here in just a little bit as well. It is through, though, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Jennifer, Child Care Technical Assistance Network. So if you Google it, it'll probably come up. But like I said, we can try to get that in the chat for you as well. Katrina, I don't know if it can be emailed to you. I know that it is on the Thriving Childcare Business Academy site, but let me see here what Margaret can find to put in the chat. Thank you all for asking questions. Makes me feel not quite so alone. Okay, so the next step 3, is assessing your rate. So far, we have how much it costs. Thank you, Margaret. We have how much it costs you to care for children, and you also have a sense of what parents are paying for childcare in your area. Now we have to come up with a number for your rate. And to do this, we need to determine your profit margin. Sometimes, especially in childcare, business owners get uncomfortable talking about profits. It sounds like you're devious and you're doing something wrong. How dare you make money in childcare? but it is a business, just like every other small business. It is a business, and you should make money when you are the business owner. Profit is crucial, as it not only helps helps you for your long hours, your hard work, but profit also contributes in the long term to the viability of your business. It again can be pumped back into your classrooms, but mostly you deserve a profit because you also again are putting your time and effort into absolutely, Charmaine, there is no way to stay in business without profit. Thank you. Thank you. Generating a profit is what allows you to set aside funds to repair the fence, in the backyard for 5 years. But it also allows you to take a vacation because everybody deserves and needs a vacation. So it is important to the long term of your business, your employees, and the children that you care for and serve. While you will need to play with the numbers to compensate for local market rates, as a starting point, we would suggest that you start with a profit margin around 15 to 20%. So that's what we suggest. Sometimes it's again hard to think about or hard to do, but that would be our suggestion. And that's absolutely right. You cannot stay in business without making a profit. You will get burnt out. I could go on and on, but you need to pay yourself and make a profit. So step 4, now that you've created a few different rates to look at with different profit margins, you can also have data on what the market can bear. How do you determine a rate? So the first thing you want to do is look at those rates that you calculated from all the data that you gathered. How does your potential rate compare to the market? Again, so many providers have said, I haven't raised my rates in years, or I've only gone up $5 since the start of the pandemic. That's not doing you or your business anything. Not doing anything very well, for sure. Again, that money can be pumped back into the classrooms and the business, and into yourself, so that you don't get burnout. So you always want to consider what you're currently charging in comparison to the rates in the area, and kind of go from there. We suggest that you kind of shoot for the 75th percentile. If you have not done a rate increase for a while, or if you're nowhere near what your competitors are, shoot for that 75th percentile to kind of get you back on the average, where everybody else is. If you feel the market rate is far below what you are currently charging, consider adjusting your rates to increase the number of children in your care, if possible, or if the market rate looks like it's far higher than what you're charging, maybe it would be a good time to increase your rates. Again, this increase isn't about trying to take from your families, but rather it's about ensuring that your business will remain in business and viable for the future. All right, step 5. Let's talk about reevaluating your rates annually. Pricing is an exercise you should do at least once a year. With, current market fluctuations and inflation, you may want to reevaluate more regularly, especially if you haven't done it in a while. We would suggest you do it sooner rather than later. Feedback from parents and guardians about rates may be also another factor that can trigger rate reevaluation. If you find a rate change is warranted and you do need to increase your rates, you might want to, again, like we had talked about, first start testing out the new prices with the new children that are enrolling in your care. I have also done where I would raise the rates as the child transitioned to the next classroom. So if they're in the infant rate currently, they're not going to get a rate increase. But once the child ages out of the infant room and transitions up to the toddler room rate has already had that increase. So that's when they will get that rate increase. So again, there's many different ways to do rate increases, but definitely it's something that you need to, make sure that you are evaluating at least annually. Um, you may want to do incremental tuition raises if you feel that that is needed. If you notice that your rates are really low and you think, oh my goodness, I should go up, 15 to 20%, maybe put the brakes on a little bit and raise it incrementally every, 6 months, 9 months, to give the families time to get, used to that next rate. All right, I have talked a lot. So let's open it up for some questions again, before I continue on. I, again, really appreciate the questions and comments in the chat. Margaret, thank you so much for adding um, the website for the Child Care Technical Assistance Network into the chat, as well as there will be a recording of this presentation within a couple weeks for you all to see as well. And there's also a written guide available that Margaret also has put into the chat as well. How does everybody feel about rate increases now? Has anything changed with what we've gone over? Have we alleviated any of the fear and anxiety?
This is Jennifer Laster, and
Yes.
yes, it has helped to know that everybody is feeling this way. And it's good to have this training. However, there's still a little anxiety of the response you're going to get from your families. It's still that what are they going to say, or what are they going to do? However, everything you're saying, I totally agree with it, and I'm sure everybody else does, but it's still that just anxiety when you put those new rates out there. What is going to be the reaction from your families?
Mm-hmm. I hear that, and I know that everybody else hears that that's on this call as well. I think, the thing that you need to remember, Jennifer, is when you are going through the steps that we just laid out, you have all of your costs, all of your information gathered. You have it all. You know exactly what and why that tuition increase is needed. I think that's also going to help you whenever you relay that information to the parents. I would highly suggest, some little things like, one, you give them plenty of notice. Maybe if you're planning to increase tuition at the beginning of the school year, that you tell them at the end of this school year, look, these new tuition rates are going into effect whatever your school year starts, September 1st, August, whatever, so that they have time to prepare and know that it's coming. I would also, something I used to do as a director is I would tell them, please come to me if you have questions, and I would be ready. I would know exactly, what I was going to say. If somebody would say, why are you doing this? And I would, have plenty of reasons. One of the main reasons, and again, if you've been in these small study groups that we've been doing, especially recruiting and retaining staff, one of the main reasons is staffing. If you have staff, you need to make sure that they are well taken care of and they are paid, and that they know they're loved and they know you care for them. So that is also something. And I would also almost, say, look, Johnny loves Miss Karen. I don't want to lose Miss Karen. I need to put every cent that I can back into my, my curriculum and my teachers and staffing. So again, doing the things, figuring out the cost of care and price, all of those things is going to help, along with giving them a chance and a time to adjust. Hopefully
I
that
need to get
helps.
something right. I heard that somebody is saying that you said we should increase our price by 15 to 20%. Is that what you are saying, or you are talking about us looking at our cost and profit
No,
margin and working with 15 to 20%? Is that what you are saying, or are you saying that because I saw somebody put it that you are saying that we should increase our rate by 15 to 20%? So I want you to clarify that.
yes, no, we're not saying you should increase your rates by 15 to 20%. We are saying that you should shoot for your profit margin being 15 to 20%. So, I honestly, would suggest having, possibly even in your family handbook, your parent handbook, something that says, we evaluate pricing every year with, tuition costs or with, a possible rate of 3 to 5% each year. That way it's written. I would also suggest stating that as they enroll. Look, we open this time, we close this time, payments are due on this date, and here is our tuition increase information. We reevaluate it every year, and with a 3 to 5% possible increase, so they know it as soon as they're enrolling. Nothing, no surprises, especially when it comes to people's money, for sure. Thank you for asking that. Yes, Charmaine, and reality is we give annual raises and bonuses. Hopefully, yes, hopefully you're able to do that. And current families will usually have the issues. New parents do not. That is what I experienced. Yeah, Latoya, that can definitely be the case that, current families might have the issue. But I mean, I know I'm not alone, and I always would feel this as well, this anxiety, like, oh my goodness, we're having a tuition increase. I got to put the word out. And when I did, I mean, I might get one parent that would say something, but it was never as bad as what I thought it was going to be, which, definitely made it easier the next time. Sarai, I think you have your hand up.
I do. So I would like to piggyback on what you're saying because I was the person that had so much anxiety and I was so underpriced in my neighborhood. And I was working myself to death and I had so many kids. And even if you do lose a couple, when you increase your price, it doesn't take as many children to cover your expenses. So everything over whatever you're making is a bonus or a surplus or whatever, what have you. But I did the same thing that you said. I figured out what everyone in my area was charging, and I was severely undercharging my parents, and I felt it. Like I felt it. And when I changed my prices, because they would even leave and go somewhere and spend more money. And I'm like, wait a minute, we offer more, we're cheaper. Why are they spending more money here? But it was the look and everything that they could afford to provide because they were charging more. And then when you increase your rates, they appreciate having quality teachers, a quality program. And I just had to get out of the mindset of trying to save everybody and think about the type of program that I wanted to offer and just what the
Yep.
price, what it cost. And
Yep.
the reality was that it just cost more than what I was charging. And the parents appreciated it. I didn't have many that complained, and I gained more students.
That's
So
great.
I just have to piggyback on what you're saying because I was
That's
terribly
great.
afraid of
Yes.
charging more. But now I'm here to make sure I'm charging the correct price by
Yes.
the pricing like you're stating. And because we're going through our increase also. And I make sure that when they come in, they know that we increase our price every year. But you do have to tell them why.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like, anything increasing, it is good for them to know the why. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate, you telling that personal story, because again, I was the same way. But again, when you do increase, and parents do see, that the staffing turnover is, not as crazy as everywhere else they've been, or the classrooms, like you said, what are they getting? The classrooms look great. You're putting the money back into your home. Those things are going to make a difference. But if you are way below everybody in your area, in all honesty, they're not going to be able to leave you and go somewhere else if you're way lower anyway. So keep that in mind too. You need to make sure that you are, somewhat, on the same level as where everybody else is as well. Really quickly, I don't want to, run over too much, but I definitely will stay and answer some more questions. But let me just say thank you so much for taking the time to join this webinar today. I really do hope that, again, you have, if nothing else, learned you're not alone. Everybody has these, fears and anxieties when it comes to setting rates and pricing for your center, but finding that cost of care and determining that just right rate is so very important, and is definitely going to make things a lot easier for you. So definitely utilize the 5 easy steps that we went over. And all right, so quickly want to go over, if you have not joined our small study groups, they are amazing. I love them. I see Julie's face right now. I love Julie too. But please join our small study groups. They are amazing. No more than 10 people in each group. Here's a little bit more information. So literally, we have coaching on the same thing as our small study groups, but these are the same topics that we have. You can go to, Margaret just put it in the chat, you can go to the Thriving Childcare Business Academy website and join. The small study groups are like this, and we just kind of bounce ideas off of each other. Obviously, you learn a lot. They come with workbooks, but it really, really is helpful. If you talk to anybody who's done them, I think they'd probably say the exact same thing. Another thing that I do want to mention is that we also offer free one-on-one tax coaching. So please keep that in mind for if you have questions about your taxes. And then also we offer one-on-one coaching for ERTC and FFCRA. If you did receive any of that money, we have some coaches who can, or if you think you may be eligible for that money, we have some coaches that can help you with that as well. Okay. Again, if you have further questions or anything that you need, I'd be more than happy to stay here for a little bit longer and answer. Also wanted to just point out on the screen now, you can go to the Decal Thriving Childcare Business Academy and browse the entire library of self-study guides, as well as learn more about the registration for the upcoming webinars that we're doing. We will be doing 2 each month through August. And then you can also register for our small study groups there. Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? We are finished. If you do want to be done, I appreciate you so much for coming and putting things in the chat and asking questions. Latoya, I tried to apply for this before and it would not allow me. Latoya, if you're talking about the small study groups, can you let me know that? Is that what you're talking about?
I went ahead and sent her the Georgia coaching email to connect her with Ashley so she can help her get set up.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or anything from anyone?
I have a question. This is Jennifer again. So I'm in tonight's class as well. Is that the small group you're talking about? This will be my first one tonight.
No, so that's another webinar. The small study groups are, those are 4 1-hour sessions. And at the end of those 4 1-hour sessions, you get 4 training hours in your Georgia PDS, as well as you get a $300 stipend for each one that you attend, each 4 sessions you attend. So the small study groups, we have the financial foundations, recruiting and retaining staff, sales and marketing, mitigating risk, and revenue streams and growth. And that was the link. If you scroll up just slightly in the chat, Margaret just put that link in the chat. So you can click on that to go to the Thriving Childcare page, and then also join one of those groups if you would like.
So that's
Tammy,
different.
I will see you in the morning. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jennifer.
So that's different because I went to that website and I registered, and then I got the 4 sessions I'm supposed to do. The first one is
Oh.
tonight. So is there something else?
Margaret, are you aware, is there a session tonight? We don't usually do them in the evening. Or Jennifer, what time are you saying tonight? Is it 4:30?
No, 6:30.
That's a tax training webinar.
So Jennifer, so that is something different.
Okay.
Yes. And Margaret also put in the chat the email address for you. If you have questions, you can reach out so that Ashley can get back to you about registering for the sessions if you're not able to figure that out. Nora, you're very welcome for this class. Faye, great. I'm glad that you found it informative. I'm definitely going to increase. That's good. Okay. Well, if that is it, if nobody else has questions, I think we can finish. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your day.